Hey friends, just wanted to hop on here for a little bit. I have been feeling kind of led to share a little bit about homeschooling, about my journey with our kiddos, and just some of the resources that I think are helpful, as well as just some encouragement and also some things that I found in scripture that I think will be helpful to you. I apologize ahead of time for the camera. It's my iPhone and the lighting is terrible, so but I'm going to do my best to be concise and clear and show as much as I possibly can in a brief amount of time. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I hope you'll hang in till the end for those of you who are contemplating homeschool, because I do have quite a bit of information to share with you that I think will be helpful. So, first things first, a passage of scripture that has stuck with me for a very long time, probably for the past 10 years of parenting, and I have got, I've been a mom for 13 years now. I have twins that are 13, and then I have an 11-year-old and a 8-year-old. Wow. But about 10 years ago, I had read this passage before, but I had read it again out of 1 Kings chapter 3, and it's where Solomon is sort of being passed the torch. Sorry about that, if that glitched out for a second. He's sort of being passed the torch by his father to build the temple and lead the people. And it says in chapter 3 that God said to Solomon, "Ask for whatever you want me to give you." And Solomon says, "You were very kind to your servant, my father David. He obeyed you and he was honest and lived right. You showed great kindness to him when you allowed his son to be king after him. Lord my God, now you have made me, your servant, king in my father's place. But I am like a child. I don't know how to do what must be done. I, your servant, am here among your chosen people, and there are too many of them to count. I ask that you give me an obedient heart so I can rule these people in the right way and will know the difference between right and wrong. Otherwise, it is impossible to rule this great people of yours." And I remember when I read that, it was during, I believe, about a month after I'd had my third child, and at the time my twins were 2, and then I had a newborn. So I was, sleep deprived and, lacking sleep and consciousness, really. I was kind of a walking zombie back then. But I just remember feeling really weary because all of the tasks of motherhood seemed huge, and as much as I absolutely loved being a mom, there were so many decisions to make, and what's the right way and what's the wrong way, and how do I know what to do for this child? They're so much different than that child, and each child comes with their own character and their own weaknesses and their own strengths, and there's so many different things that come up every single day that each child needs that's different. And so for me at that time, it was just, how do I know what they need? How do I know what to give them? And I had come across that passage, and it gave me great comfort to just think how it sounds simple, but I think it is simple to ask the Lord what to do and to ask him to help us to lead these people that he's entrusted us with. But I think the thing that's hard about it is, for us, it's hard to release control. And so what I've found is that when I come to the Lord and ask him for divine creativity, for divine wisdom, for divine discernment, for understanding, for how to handle this very specific situation, I don't believe in being trite with God and just throwing out random questions that don't have a detailed basis of what's reality in my world. I believe that God is deeply concerned with my children, and that he's deeply concerned with all the things that concern them and all the things that concern me. I know that for myself, when I sit down with my kids, I want to know intimate details of the things that they're wrestling through so that I can help them problem solve. And the more information they give me, the better. Clearly God knows everything, so it's not so much that he needs our information, but I do believe he needs our hearts, and he wants our hearts surrendered so that he can fill us with whatever he wants to share with us. So that's the first passage I wanted to share. And then the other passage that just has always stood out to me is where the angel comes to Mary and tells her that she's going to be with child, and she walks away from that encounter, and it says that she pondered these things in her heart. So I think that we go to the Lord and we listen and wait for him to give us instruction. First of all, we ask, but then we wait. And then I believe it's after we've waited and sort of pondered the things in our hearts that he's given us, he fills us with good things and with new things to attack whatever it is that we're encountering. And so I think it's just really good to consider that. If homeschooling is something that God has put upon your heart, pray about it. I know he will give you an answer, because that's what he does. And ponder it in your heart, the things that he shares with you. Let it fill you, and then take action, So for me, when my kids were born, my twins, I knew I wanted to homeschool. I just didn't know when. And it was kind of a journey getting here, because I had 4 small children close together, very close in a row. I had 4 under 4. So I didn't really feel equipped in the beginning to wrangle 2 4-year-olds, a 2-year-old, and a newborn. And I don't know that anyone is, but I didn't feel right or ready yet. So it took me a couple years to get to the place where my heart was open to it even more, to take action. But about the time that Micah and Maya were in 5th grade, I heard the Lord very clearly say to me, now is the time. And that was in February of, I believe it was either 2017. So when the Lord told me, I prayed about it. I waited for wisdom. I prayed that the Lord would soften my husband's heart towards the idea, because he wasn't necessarily 100% on board, and a lot of husbands are not, for a multitude of reasons. Every husband has their different thoughts about it, but so my husband wasn't totally on board with it in the beginning. But when I prayed and asked the Lord to soften his heart, if this was what our family was supposed to do, he did. And it was really clear that that's the step that we needed to take. So entering into the homeschool realm, there is lots of information. There are lots of thoughts about how you should homeschool, why you should homeschool, how to do it, all kinds of things. And so I took some notes here just to kind of make sure I keep myself on track, because I can kind of tend to ramble. But I think knowing the why is really important, because it will help you shift your focus as far as the purpose behind your motivation for homeschooling. Because I think even if we start out doing it maybe because we're afraid of something, or whatever the situation might be that is causing you to homeschool, eventually over time you will learn what your motivation is behind it. But it is great to know up front why your why. So for me personally, I just knew that I wanted to be invested in that time with my kids. I felt led towards it. I felt called towards it. And I do believe that you feel a calling towards it when you're supposed to do it. I believe that we're supposed to order the affections of our children and towards things that are good and pure and lovely and beautiful. And one of the beauties of homeschool is getting to do that, getting to teach things like charity and virtues and love and kindness, and to focus on the things that matter more than a piece of paper, or that matter more than creating somebody who can just fill a spot in an assembly line. I think more than ever right now we're seeing how important it is that our children have virtues, and that they have strong character, and that they have their feet firmly planted, and I don't think you have to be homeschooling to do that. If your kids are in public schools or private schools, it's not a reason for us to slack as parents either. So we need to be teaching those things no matter what. But I do feel that, that is a huge component of why I personally felt called to homeschool. We could not afford private school, and a lot of the schools that we were zoned for weren't super. And there's a lot of things coming down the pike in public schools that I don't agree with. We also have a child with some special needs. She has OCD and anxiety and sensory processing issues. So there was a lot of learning things that were a huge struggle in large classroom environments, and even after we had received 504 plan help and separated and all of that, there was still quite a bit of struggle. And watching her thrive and succeed in so many different areas because of homeschooling has been a huge confirmation for me that it was the right thing to do for our family. So knowing why, that's really important. Another thing that's really important is to understand how you personally learn, because that will also help you in teaching your kids. And there's a variety of different kinds of curriculums out there, and some require very little of you and some require a lot of you. So it just really depends on what kind of a homeschooler you want to be. If you want to be a really hands-on homeschooler, then you're probably going to be more attracted to things like Charlotte Mason or classical education, classical conversations, or unschooling. Some people like unschooling. But if you are more, you feel really passionate about keeping your kids at home, but you have a lot of irons in the fire and you don't have time to sit and hover over your kids, then you might do better with something like an Abeka curriculum, or an Open and Go, or even like a Florida Virtual Online, something like a My Father's World, or Simply Charlotte Mason, or what else is there? I'm trying to think. The Good and the Beautiful is another beautiful curriculum. Those are all more hands-on, literature-based programs that are going to require more of your time. So it really just depends on what kind of learner you are and what kind of teacher you want to be or not be, according to your time and the amount of kids you have. I have 4 kids, so for me, what I really was passionate about was doing a lot of our work together, and then, they would do obviously extended individual work, and everybody has different math and reading and things like that, but that we would do history together, and that we would do science together, and that we would do poetry together and music together and Shakespeare, and that we would do read-alouds together, and we would do nature study together. So all of those things, for me personally, I loved that I could grab my 8-year-old and she could sit in the room where my 13-year-olds and my 11-year-old are listening to a read-aloud that is probably above her age level, appropriate, but she's still grasping great vocabulary words and learning concepts, and she's getting the information whether she realizes she's consciously taking in it or not. So I love that part of being more of I would consider myself a Charlotte Mason / eclectic homeschooler, because I'm very much a fan of the liberal arts. I love literature-based homeschool. Obviously, we're really rigid when it comes to math, but I'm also kind of, depending on how I'm feeling that day, if I'm feeling like we need to throw in a project or something fun, we do that. And I love that homeschooling in this manner affords us that ability. The other thing I would say to kind of question for yourself is to know what kind of a mom you are. Are you an introvert? Are you an extrovert? Because that will play a part in the ways that you interact with your kids. You're going to, if you're an introvert, you're going to need time to recharge during the day so that you can give back to your kids. I personally am a introvert. I need a lot of alone time to recharge. I actually have a book here that I highly recommend. It's called Introverted Mom. It's probably backwards on the screen, but it's by Jamie Martin. And I loved this book because it helped me understand myself more and helped me understand how to recharge more while being home with my kids, and just different ways that I could do that. But if you're an extrovert, then you're probably going to lean more towards co-ops and things like that. But with that being said, whether or not you're an introverted mom or an extroverted mom, you also have to think about what your kids are and what they need. So I'm an introvert. I have 2 introverts and I have 2 extroverts. So my introvert kiddos are just like me. They're happy to be tucked in bed with blankets and pillows and a great book or a great movie, and they're happy. But my other 2, they would die without socialization. And this is the big question that I always get asked: how do you socialize them? Well, okay, first of all, we're a family of 6, so they're never alone. But we have church, which we've been missing church the past 3 months because of Corona craziness. But, ordinarily, we're in church, I would say 3 to 4 times a week, sometimes 5. I have my older kids in youth group. I have my middle one involved in worship, and my little one goes to the classes that suit her age group. It's not really an option. They don't get to choose, because to me, I feel like it's really important for them to learn to serve. So that's a way that they get socialization, is just through being involved in church activities and mission things that come up where their church has needs and things like that. We do that. We also have a PE program that we used to be a part of, sports. There's all different ways that your kids can be around other kids. That's never really an option to worry, or a thing to worry about. I worry about more the socialization that they're exposed to in public school than I am about what they're not exposed to in my home. So I personally think the socialization question gets asked a lot, but it's really, to me, it's a non-issue. Moving on, I think the greatest thing of importance when homeschooling is to understand your children's learning styles, because some children are auditory, some children are visual learners, and some children are kinesthetic. They need to touch, see, smell, feel it. So it's good to really kind of pay attention to your kids, study your children, and know how it is that they take in the world around them. How do they respond to the world around them? And that will help you get a grasp on how they take in information. The bottom line with learning is, you only learn what you love. So, you love your children, so you're a student of your children. You know everything about them. You know that when their eyes move in a certain direction, it means this, and when their mouth curls in a certain way, it means they're sad or that they're scared, or by the tension in their voice what they're feeling. And you can tell. I remember when my little boy was much younger, I always knew when he was sick because the color of his lips changed to a little bit of a lighter pink because they're normally bright red. Just little nuances like that you learn because you love them. And learning is the same way with education. So, I would say you can't go wrong if you read really, really good books. There is nothing that compares to story. Taking your kids on a journey with you, read-alouds have been probably the most precious thing that we have done in our homeschool. And I did post on my stories today about Read Aloud Revival, but Read Aloud Revival, run by Sarah McKenzie, she has over 100 podcasts on how to get started as a reading family if you're not. And then she takes you through each age group, each genre. She tackles hard questions and any of the things that you might feel are a hiccup to you not being able to become a reading family. Because there is nothing like being told a story, but joining in together as a family is crucial to their learning experience. If you're learning about George Washington and you're just learning dry facts, but you pair it with a biography about him and a wonderful story of his childhood, your kids are going to remember that so much better. And you got to go on the journey with them, and you each pick out different things. And so I'm kind of going on a tangent right now about that, but I have an issue with books anyways. I have like huge stacks here to show you. But I had someone today ask me about kindergarten. For kindergarten, really, kindergartners are 5 and 6 years old. You can't go wrong if you just sit and read to your 5 and 6 year old. There is so much that children get out of hearing words spoken in the right cadence. They learn grammar, they learn vocabulary, they learn pronunciation, they learn life lessons, they learn virtues if we're reading good books. They learn all kinds of things that are so much more effective than a dry piece of paper with facts. So I would say for those of you who have younger kids, I did receive a question today about curriculum for 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds, and there's a lot of amazing curriculums out there, but really at 5 and 6 years old, they're still exploring. They should be playing in dirt. They should be looking at nature and studying the leaves and studying the seasons and, of course, learning their ABCs and phonics and basic math. But exploration is huge for that age group, and reading, just pull them up in your lap. They're not going to be there forever, I promise you. Like my youngest is 8 and she'll still sit in my lap. Thank goodness. But my older ones, I can't pick them up anymore. My son is taller than me now, and it's a really precious time. So I wouldn't waste it with being so ambitious about the expectation of checking things off of a list, because they have so much time to be learning the harder things, rhetoric and grammar and reading and arithmetic and, logic and all of that. They have the older stages for that. But when they're younger, let them be kids. Let them learn through stories and fun songs and fun shows and coloring and painting, and let them play. And moms, let your kids get dirty, especially at that age, but just let them get dirty. Let them get messy. They will learn so much that way. So as far as resources, I did share in my stories, but for those of you who didn't catch it, my favorite podcasts that I would highly recommend, the Homeschool Sisters. They're amazing. They are funny. They are very wise. They've been homeschooling for a really long time, and they both, between the two of them, I think they have about 5 or 6 kids. So they go through a lot of things that moms put on themselves, and they help you take those kind of pressures and guilt and those kinds of things off of you, and they tell you what you really need to focus on, and give great ideas and suggestions and books and all kinds of things. So that's one. Your Morning Basket with Pam Barnhill. Pam Barnhill is a wealth of information. You can check her out online. All of her podcasts are fantastic. Morning time is a huge component of our personal homeschool and a lot of homeschools. It comprises of, our morning read aloud, our devotion, our Bible time, our music study, our art study, our history book that we're reading, our science lesson, kind of all those group studies that I want to do when I can gather all my ducklings in one place before they spur off and do all of their individual stuff. That's what we do. And a lot of moms do that, but they give some really great ideas over at Your Morning Basket. Another one, I did mention Read Aloud Revival by Sarah Mackenzie. I'm trying to think what else. You might have to just go click over on my stories and go through, because I can't remember off the top of my head right now. But I wanted to share a few books that have been inspirational to me. The very first homeschool book I ever read was this one, and I don't know if you can see. It's For the Children's Sake by Susan Schaefer Macaulay, and it's the Foundations of Education. And I think if you read nothing else, read this. It's not terribly big. It is 150 pages, but this book was invaluable to me. Read Aloud Family. This is another. Sarah Mackenzie wrote this book, and she gives all kinds of suggestions for different read alouds for all different age groups, all different preferences, teenage kids, junior high, elementary, family friendly, all those kinds of things. Let's see, we've got The Brave Learner. Oh yeah, Julie Brave Writer. That's another one on another podcast that I absolutely love. She talks about enchanted homeschooling, and I love the way that she makes you feel at ease about homeschooling and helps you to bring in beauty and all the things that are logistically what you need to homeschool, but also just the magic of homeschooling. And there really is so much magic to homeschooling. It's hard. There's hard things about it, but it's magical too. So The Brave Learner by Julie Bogart, Everyday Magic of Homeschool, Learning, and Life. This is amazing. Loved that read. I think I read it twice. The Living Page. This is by Laura Bestvetter. Anyways, this is, it says it's for Charlotte Mason homeschoolers, but I feel like any homeschooler can benefit from this. This is just teaching you how to create different notebooks in your homeschool so that you can keep track of everything and the beauty of the living page. So I highly recommend that. What else do I have here? Mere Motherhood, Cindy Rollins. That's another amazing woman. She actually coined the phrase morning basket. And I believe she has a podcast as well. I can't remember. I think it's called The Mason Jar. You can look that up. It's really good. Let's see. Special Education at Home by Shauna Wingert. This is great if you have a special needs kiddo. She gives a lot of really great tips for moms who are looking to teach outside the box, because that's what we do with kids with special needs. We have to think outside the box. Unhurried Homeschooler by Dorinda Wilson, another great read. Let's see. Consider This by Karen Glass. This one actually merges the Charlotte Mason and, sorry, my battery's about ready to die, so I'm going to have to speed it up. Merges how alike classical education and Charlotte Mason are, and she talks about all of the different aspects of both. So this was a really beautiful read. I loved that a lot. Let's see, Honey for a Teen's Heart. This is kind of like the Read Aloud Revival for teens. So that was great. Habits by Charlotte Mason. This one talks about instilling good habits in your children. This is a foundational thing in the Charlotte Mason community, and one of the things that Charlotte Mason taught was that kids need to have habits formed in order to receive the benefits of their education. So like the habit of attention, the habit of obedience, the habit of remembering, the habit of truth and temper. There's all different kinds. So this is another great one by Charlotte Mason. I'm going to try to go quickly here. The Explosive Child, Ross Green. if you have a strong-willed kiddo, I highly recommend this one. There's also a podcast called Calm Parenting. He's hysterical, and he's dead on everything that he says, and he has such great wisdom for parents that are trying to rein in themselves while dealing with a child that has high needs. So that's that. As far as curriculum, like I said, you need to find out what level of involvement you want to be with your children and how you teach, how you learn, and that will determine which direction you go. So kind of sit down and write down, are you wanting to be really hands-on? Are you wanting to have an organic experience? Then you're probably going to be more in the direction of Charlotte Mason, unschooling, probably eclectic. You might be in like My Father's World. I think I mentioned that. The Good and the Beautiful is another great curriculum. Master's books, I think that all of their books are fantastic. But if you're wanting more of an open and go, I think Abeka's great for that. I feel like Apologia is as well, but I believe that it's pretty intense. Bob Jones University, that's another one, or BJU, yeah. So, and then there's always online school. If you have older kids that can just, take care of themselves, then, do that too. I forgot to add in all the websites that I wanted to add to this, but I'll go ahead and put that in my notes. There's also an FPEA convention here in Florida, July 23rd, 24th, and 25th in Orlando. For those of you who are local, I highly recommend going. It is worth every penny. I feel like it's maybe like $100 to go. They have a huge hall with all of the different vendors, great breakout sessions. So I would highly recommend that. And just research. You have time. You don't have to learn it all in one day. You won't. It's impossible. You won't learn it all in a year. I'm still learning. My kids change every day. Their needs change every day. The way that they learn and receive information changes depending on what's going on in our life. It's been wild the past couple months. We went through all of this corona crazy, and there's just a lot going on. But I can tell you, since we started homeschooling, our family has gone through some really great things, and as a family we've walked through some really hard things. We moved out of our old house. We had gone through illness. I went through a really serious bout with depression about a year ago that was hard. But honestly, homeschooling was the thing that grounded us. It kept us together, and it kept us focused, and in some ways kept us distracted from all the strange things that have been happening the past couple months. It was that thing that sort of centered us, and I believed that God designed the family unit to be that anyways. So I would just say, don't put pressure on yourself, and don't put pressure on your kids. This is something you are going to learn together. You don't have to be the dispenser of all knowledge in order to teach your kids. You don't have to have a degree. I don't have a degree in education to teach my kids, but I'm teaching them because no one knows your kids' hearts like you do, and you can teach them and learn with them. You don't have to have every single answer. You can autocorrect in the middle of the road if you need to. We had to change courses with math with 2 of my kids this year. It worked. It was fine. Sometimes things don't work. You don't have to be married to a curriculum just because you start it. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. I know sometimes there's guilt in there because you spent money on it, but honestly, I would rather love something and love teaching it and learning it with my kids than hate something and feel guilted into using it simply because there was a dollar sign attached to it. There's really no price for loving education, and that's what I'm more concerned with. I want my kids to walk away with a love for the things that they're learning so that they actually take them with them forever and not just for a quarter. I don't remember half the things I learned in school because I was just trying to cross things off of a list and make sure I filled in the right dots on a test so that it told me if I was figuring out what I was learning or not. I want my kids to walk away with real, genuine love for the things that they're learning, and I hope you do too. I will probably do another one of these in a couple weeks after I get back from the FPEA convention. I'm sure I've left out a ton of info on here, but I try to get in as much things as I possibly could. But I would say, right now, if you're processing it, pray about it. The Lord will give you an answer. And then just give yourself the flexibility to learn from a variety of different places. I think it's really important to learn wide, and you will learn deep if you go wide, if that makes sense, because you'll find common threads everywhere, and something will resonate with you, and you'll know the right way to go if you do that way. Whereas sometimes people tend to go one direction and they get really narrow-minded, like, I'm only going to do Waldorf. But what if there's something beautiful in classical? And what if there's something beautiful in unschooling? So don't feel like there's only one right way for your family. There's not. It's, each year brings something different to the table, and each child needs something different. And so I'm kind of a go with the flow kind of person, as you can tell, kind of a hippie. But it has worked for our family. And so I pray blessing on you. If you are a mom that is contemplating homeschooling, I want to tell you this: you can do it. You can do it with the Lord's help. If you do exactly what Solomon did and asked for wisdom for how to guide your little people in your little kingdom, He will provide. He will provide all the answers that you need. He will give you wisdom. God bless.